So tell me about how you got into. I know you said it's a family business, but was there anything that happened, or a class that you took, or just being around it for so long?
Mainly just being around it. I always had an knack for construction and like building things, the gratification of, you work all day and you put something together. Um, of course, I was a big Lego person as a kid, which seemed kind of a natural fit.
Uh-huh.
um, I ended up going to school for construction at Virginia Tech, and uh, they have a very well known building construction program, is actually what it's called. And once I graduated, I went and worked for a bigger builder in Washington D.C. called Skanska. They're a global company. They do tens of billions a year in construction worldwide. But I worked on local projects: American University, Virginia Hospital Center, the Borough in Tyson's Corner. And then right when COVID hit in 2020, I ended up. It kind of worked out. Um, I parted ways with that company and just joined our family business because we were taking on some more projects that needed additional help for. We weren't really set up from a technology end to handle them. So I kind of I'm like
Went in
the
there with that
IT guy.
young brain and started like
Exactly.
systemizing and technologically updating everything.
Yes. Very much a move away from pen and paper to
Yeah.
computer programs, software, CAD, a lot more 3D rendering. Just things that as you as technology advanced in construction businesses, which is usually a business that's behind in technology, uh, people are expecting that. So I
Yeah.
was able to kind of bring that to our business, and along with just other processes and procedures that were needed to kind of help expand it.
Where
So
do you see the construction business specific to our area in Northern Virginia? Because I feel like construction, like it's so much faster here in Northern Virginia. I'm from Indiana. In
okay,
Indiana, it would take things like years to get built. Whereas here, it's like I'll go on vacation for a month, come back, not really a month, but like I'll leave for a month somewhere, come back, and it's like I don't even recognize this place.
sure. Well, there's just such a demand, due to the area we live in, the higher incomes, the more wealth that's concentrated. There's just a demand for from public construction to private, more amenities, more roads, more. So we always see the data centers going up so fast. So there's just a lot of money involved in the area that I think helps inject, you know, a certain kind of speed and
That's
efficiency
right.
to
You're right. Money
getting things
talks.
done. So I
That
would
makes
say that's
sense.
probably the major factor in this area. So
So where do you see things shifting though? Like, do you see any types of changes from like construction from like 20 years ago versus now, or anything?
yes, from a residential standpoint, I see a lot of folks back in the 90s, early 2000s. There was a big push for people to build McMansions,
Mm-hmm.
5 to 7,000 square foot homes on 1 acre lots with 24 foot foyer ceilings, 10-foot ceilings all throughout the main level. And now people are becoming, in my opinion, more green and more. They're building to the land better. They're looking for the modern farmhouse, which is a very popular building style right now. One level living, because there's a lot of older folks moving into the area building their dream home, or just wanting to downsize where they can, 2,500 square foot home is still larger than the national average,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking to build that size and be able to live on one level, be able to have a house that doesn't, it's not such an albatross with the lay of the land that it's set on. Have more, definitely since COVID, this is a more recent trend, more outdoor living space has been a very big push to have 3 season rooms, covered porches, patios. A lot of our landscaping partners have seen a huge growth in construction of pools, patios, outdoor fireplaces, and I think that's all in response to one, the beauty of the area we live in, and two, COVID,
Yeah.
and the idea of being outside is good for you,
Yeah.
and I think that's a fact.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that at least from a construction standpoint. So even if it's not new construction, even renovation,
Yeah. So you said that you renovate like historic properties.
we do.
What's been like your favorite project?
My favorite project, which was one of the most recent projects we did, was restoring the Waterford Mill
Okay.
in Waterford. So we did a partial restoration, did a lot of masonry work, timber framing, carpentry. We renovated the roof. We also rebuilt the historic Hearst frame, which was in the basement of the building that actually housed all the milling equipment and absorbed all the vibration from that operation instead of the building itself. So that was a really fun project. It was a county-funded project, but there was a lot of trades that were involved that aren't typical with just building a new home, like a timber framer. There was a millwright involved. There was an architect that did a lot of studies on the mill to help give us insight on what some of the practices were back in the day.
That's awesome.
So,
Did anything happen that you guys weren't expecting because it's such an old historic property?
so we were not expecting to find that in the mill race where the actual mill wheel sits, there was a spring. We were not really aware of that information until we started actually pumping the water out of it, and it kept just refilling and refilling. And part of the scope was to actually build a little retaining wall to prevent when the creek at the end of the mill race, the Catoctin Creek, rises due to rain or flood. It'll come back up the mill race, and then it'll flood the basement of the mill. So we're going to build a wall to kind of keep water out of it. But we determined, fairly quickly that would have been ineffective because the spring itself was at the bottom of the wheel pit. So
It's not like at home when your toilet floods and you can just like turn a little knob to like shut off the water.
it could be millions of gallons of perched
Holy moly.
groundwater that just
Yeah.
keeps coming in. It would when it got drier in the spring, we had a little bit of a dry spell. It slowed down, but then when it started raining again, that would eventually be more water would be coming in from the spring. So that was probably the biggest
What'd you guys do?
unexpected.
How did you navigate that?
So we just dug some pit holes in there, and we put some pumps in there and had them run 24/7. And all we really needed to do in that area was kind of clean out the bottom. There was a lot of muck and mud, and we had to repoint the stone walls in that area. So once we got it pumped, the stonemasons wore waders, so they were like knee deep in mud, but they got their work done.
Oh my gosh.
And then we let it dry overnight for a few nights, just because they had to do it in sections. Kept the water pump down, and then eventually, once it was dry, we just pulled the pumps out, and then it met its equilibrium once it filled in, and then the water eventually, will drain away down to the creek.
That's
But
awesome.
it
I mean,
was
that's like awesome. Like a
Yeah.
fun, like
it was a very
how
fun
did we
job.
navigate that back in the day?
Yes, and they didn't have
They didn't have
modern
pumps.
equipment
Yeah, they didn't
like
have all
we
that.
do, so it was maybe buckets.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my
So.
gosh, that's crazy. So for you personally, where do you see yourself fitting into the equation over the next 10 years or so? Are you going to stay with the business, family business? Or are you going to...
Yeah, I hope to certainly stay in it. I would like to grow it some more, focus on perhaps niche commercial construction work like historic restorations, such as that. We do some development projects. I'd like to see us pursue some more of those. My dad and his partner, I believe, will, at least over the next 10 years, will definitely stay in it. So I hope, to help working with them, and, eventually when they may retire, we'll see how it goes from there.
Awesome.
But
How do you guys currently get all your business? Is it word of mouth? It sounds like you
Yes.
guys do a lot of maybe like county bids or any type of,
So
maybe not a lot, but some.
I would say 90% of our business is referral, word of mouth.
Okay.
It's just in the construction business, it's just the most effective way
Yeah.
to generate more leads and more business. Now the county work, that is because it's public work, it must be bid. Sometimes it's the lowest responsive bidder, sometimes it's the lowest bid, sometimes it's a negotiated contract, which is more rare. But you have to present a proposal, bid. Anyone can bid as long as they meet certain qualifications. A
Okay.
lot of it has to do with bonding capacity, which is basically your financial strength.
Okay.
They don't want a company that can't handle a job bidding on it, so that may not have the financial resources to actually finish and complete
The
the
job.
job.
Yeah.
'Cause
That's
you don't
huge with the construction
Yes,
line of work, right?
yep, cash flow is very
Yeah.
important.
Hear a lot of horror stories.
Yes.
So marketing wise, word of mouth, I always like to ask in these podcasts because a lot of business owners listen in and they want to know, like, how it could be a photographer who's listening and who's like, take a little nugget from something that you share and like apply it to their business. So besides word of mouth, are there any other ways that you're bringing in business?
So we've always had a Facebook page. Probably started that in 2010, 2012. When I joined the business in 2020, one of the first things I did was start an Instagram page, and construction's all about pictures, right? So, and Instagram was based around pictures. So I figured that would be a good way just to, even if they're not potential customers now, friends of mine or other people that may not have the funds to do a project, just to show people what we do and be constantly in front of them, so they always know they do historic work, constantly have pictures of mill projects or other historic renovations, and then eventually if you were consistent with that, I feel like people will reach out. I mean, that's how we got connected here, and a lot I follow and like a lot of other construction companies, a lot of designers. Feel like collaborating with competition and other people that are in the industry, not necessarily exact customers, really help you on Instagram, like especially liking and following interior designers.
That lady, I should have connected you because she's one of the best in the area.
Okay.
Do you know her? Lee?
Lee.
No,
No.
never. Okay.
Um,
I'll send you
okay.
something later.
Because they always have customers, but they need a contractor to do the
To
actual
finish
work.
the job, yeah.
So, and that, of course, we have a web presence and do some local SEO marketing, but nothing crazy. I've never found that like Google ads are super effective for the construction business, at least what we do.
Yeah.
If you're maybe a service-based construction business, that like a plumber doing repairs or electrician, that may be better. But
Now, do you specialize then in historic
yeah, that's probably
renovations and?
35% of our work.
Okay.
A third
Okay.
of it, at least.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if like you guys held some type of, not conference, but like get-togethers where you're bringing in the designers and you're bringing in the people that feed you business, but then you're also collaborating and working with. But if you guys were the ones, or like when you guys complete a project, if you do like open houses or kind of like real estate agents will do. And really why real estate agents do that is because they're getting more clients and they're building their business.
Right.
It also helps show the houses, but really it's so that they can get more business in the future. Or at least that's the experience from what I've been told.
Sure.
But for you guys to do something similar to that, like when you guys finished the Waterford property, like having like a grand reopening where you guys are hosting it and inviting the community and specific partners that could refer you additional business.
Sure. I mean, the county, for example, we had somewhat of that with the mill. We invited the Loudoun Times-Mirror to come in. They did a little article about it. And then some folks from the county that were managing the project invited like the county administrator, some other folks that worked in the both elected and unelected officials, and they were, fairly impressed with the work. So they've asked us to bid on other projects because they don't always, just because they post a bid solicitation doesn't mean they're going to get the best contractors to actually bid on it, because there's so much work out there, they may not know of it. So it's led us to have a better relationship with the county.
Yeah.
And they're actually asking us to bid on certain projects that they think would be good for us, which to me is a compliment to,
Of course.
the work that we do.
So doing good work always brings in more work.
Yes, and being responsive.
There we go. Being
So,
responsive, that's a huge one.
Yes.
There are inquiries that I've put out, and to this day I have not heard from them, and I've followed up. So
Yes, I would say is one of the biggest things I hear from potential clients is I've called several people and no one's called me back. And I try my best to call, any potential lead back within 24 to 48 hours, even if it's someone that that's not a good fit.
yeah.
Just to let them know that, hey, I thank you for calling, but that's not what we do. Perhaps refer you to this person, or, I would just maybe do some searches on all the different resources we have through social media, or,
Yeah.
at local advertising.
Yeah,
Find
no,
a better,
that's awesome.
better fit.
No, that's great. Okay, so video. Have you guys started exploring video yet?
We have
Okay.
that in video, typically in the form of drone
Okay.
work.
Have you considered doing, like, especially with the historic pieces, just like a time lapse of the work being done, or even like that story you're sharing about the whole, the water, the spring, like that would have been such a cool video story.
Yes. So we have done that with the mill. I had our photographer out there doing drone work, say 4 times to try to get somewhat of a time lapse
Yeah.
of it. I'm working on through that with on another project, a new custom home. I had them out there when we were excavating, had them out there when we were pouring the concrete, then framing, and then I hope to have another time where we're actually like 80-90% complete with the outside of the house.
Awesome.
Just to kind of tell the story of,
show it.
the process of what it takes to build.
And something that you could do, and I share this with you, but obviously we're recording it so other people listen to it and they're like, oh,
Sure.
that's a great idea. Or it's a horrible idea, I don't know. So taking your phone and knowing what it is, whether it's you or somebody else on site, knowing what it is that they're photographing is actually talking through what's happening. Because to me, I just see a whole bunch of dirt, right? Like the excavating process is just a whole bunch of dirt and big old machines. But then if it's comparable to like when I post a picture of us doing a photo shoot and it's like, oh, I loved working with Sally today. It's like, it doesn't really provide the viewer much context of what they're watching.
Sure.
So then for you guys, if you're like, okay, this is what's happening. This is why we use these pieces of machinery. This is why we dig in this way. Here's some things that most people don't know about that people in the construction business know about. So you're really using that picture or that video piece or that aerial drone as a way to educate the consumers. And you're just talking through like a conversation maybe you'd have with somebody on the team.
Sure.
That way you share that piece on social media and it's not just a picture of the excavation, but then you're really giving them a deep dive into why you do what you do or how you do what you do.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times, and
You're like, I already done that.
well, no, it's just, I'm not a big, it's all about me, posting
No.
me, and so I've like always been hesitant
The
to post my
text.
voiceover.
Oh, okay.
But I know potential customers, anybody enjoys that, because I enjoy that when I watch other people do it. I'm curious about other things and other work, and I learn from what they're describing.
Especially then when they call and you pick up and they're like, Ben, is this you? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I've heard your voice. Like,
Yeah. So it's a good idea to probably continue to do that.
yeah, continue doing
So-
that. Because I don't believe it makes it about you when you're the one who's doing the voiceover, or even if you're on camera. What you're doing is you're helping people feel comfortable with you because you will be the person they're going to work with, right? So that's why I do a piece of why I do these podcasts as well, the more people see me and see the studio and see all the stuff, when they come into the studio, they're going to be like, oh, I already know you guys. I know how you work. I know your thought processes. I know that's why I came here, is because I like you guys.
Sure.
And so you can see it like that versus making it all about you, because I promise other people won't think that.
That's good. Yeah, because I'm. It's not what I am. I'm not.
You
Always
seem like
trying
a modest man.
I try to be. Yeah. So.
Awesome. All right. Any last words that you'd like to share with our listeners about either where you guys are headed, or any special project that you guys are working on, or just general life advice?
Um. I have found in my short career that, again, and I reiterate this because I've dealt with so many people, both my age, adults, older. Um, Being responsive is so important, and it's just so, I feel like, rude or disrespectful if someone reaches out to you to not at least acknowledge that and try to engage with them, whether it, because you never know who's a potential client, or you never know who they may talk to and say, yeah, I reached out to them, but they didn't answer. And unfortunately, of course, a few always slip through the cracks. Email get in the junk folder, or a voicemail gets deleted or something. But I feel like that's been a really big goal of mine, as a professional, and it's paid off because I try to, once I go out, do a quote, get that quote turned around within at least 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of it. And I'm usually the first one to get back to the potential customer. And honestly, the quicker you get back to the customer, the quicker they can say, yes, here's my deposit check, we're ready to go. And I feel like that's been one of the things leading to our recent success, is just responsiveness and that communication.
I think that is one of the best pieces of advice I've heard in a very long time. Thank you so much for being on the
Absolutely.
Alaman Show. I appreciate you sharing so freely and openly with the audience, and I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.